because I'm really struggling with the balance between the repeated message over and over again from Campbell and Holmes that are just preparing us not to expect anything big. And yet these odds come out from betonline.ag, and the Lions are expected to be a major player in some of the biggest names out there. And what I should believe, because I really don't see an upside to smoke screening free agency. I do in the draft. Free agency, it's highest bidder, and you're not trying to throw people off the scent necessarily, because people aren't trying to block you or get ahead of you. Everybody's got the same opportunities. But with that said, I mean, it could be that. It just doesn't seem to be as useful a strategic move. So do I believe them? Well, I believe them when they keep saying it over and over again. And yet when I look at cap space and possible flexibility and some contract extensions that won't kick in really till next year. But if you're going to sign a guy, what you have to remember is, okay, let's say you decide to go all in for Chris Jones if he gets on the market, and you sign him and you've earmarked $30 million for him. That's $30 million next year that you can't spend because he's not coming here on a 1-year contract. So I don't know what to think that I think is going to happen. We've had a lot of topics about this because they've sent the message over and over and over again. But I'm not sure that I 100% believe them. I know you don't.
Well, it's I think it both can be true here. Like if I believe that they want to improve the depth on the team, what better way to improve the depth on the team than adding to the top end of the position group? If you think you've got I think the Lions have a reasonably deep defensive line between the tackles and the ends. I think it's reasonably deep. You go out and you add one of these aforementioned players, or I guess they haven't been mentioned yet, but one of the players are rumored to be in on either free agency or trades. Does that not add to the depth of the position?
It depends if it costs you another position. It adds to the depth of that position, but it might cost you a starter at another position.
Well, it may, but I mean, just going by depth is depth. I mean, I'll take it if I get more high-end players at that position, and now that it's an even deeper position.
Obviously, you'll take it. If you believe them, they're not as interested as others are. But let's get to who these players are. All right, Brian Burns, edge rusher, Carolina Panthers. The favorite to land his services, the Baltimore Ravens 4-1. Jacksonville and the Rams are 6-1. The Lions and Philadelphia Eagles are 7-1. Lions are near the top. Chances to land Brian Burns if he's not a Carolina Panther. All right, let's talk about Brian Burns. What is the perceived market value for Brian Burns? I'm on SpotTrack's website, and they predict what they think everybody's going to get. Scroll. They got Brian Burns getting a 5-year contract with an average annual salary of $21.7 million. He is 25 years old. He'll turn 26 before next season. I mean, he seems like a player that's going into his prime.
He is, and he's coming off a not so productive season.
No. Was that a product of Carolina being on a bad team?
Could be. I think Brian Burns is a really good defensive end. So,
yep.
I mean, I'd be interested in him, but that price tag to me says no.
21.7 is too much.
Yeah.
See, I think that's about what he should. I mean, I would expect at his age that is about.
No, I'm not saying he won't get it. I'm
Yeah.
saying it's too much for me for the Lions. I want to be a little bit responsible with the money. I still think they can land big-time players, but this is my position of patience. Patience, Grasshopper. Let things play out a little bit, and you'll see some of the high-end players go early, set the market, and then there'll be that lull. And when that lull comes, then the Lions can swoop in and get somebody at a lot less a price who is still a tremendous value.
You hope that guy is out there and see how it plays itself out. Chris Jones, next team, if not Kansas City. The Vegas Raiders 3-1. The Detroit Lions 4-1. They are the second favorite to land Chris Jones. SpotTrack has Chris Jones getting 3 years, $85.45 million, 28.4 per.
That's too much.
I mean, like we talk about flexibility and cap space, but having to sign their own guys, it's not the $28 million fitting it under the cap perhaps this year. It's when they're trying to extend Amon-Ra, Penei, Goff, guys who are under contract for next year. Decker, like you're how do you afford Chris
Right.
Jones and extending all those guys?
I think you might be able to, again, because you can always finagle cap space, and the cap is always going up. I mean, it went up $13 million more than was expected this year. So the cap is always going up. So keep that in mind. I just think that there's a way to get somebody if you wanted to. I'm not necessarily in favor of throwing $20 million plus at a player because I think there's value other places. But if you were to, I think you could make it work and still re-sign St. Brown and McNeil and Jared Goff, and then go into the offseason next year and look at extending some of the other players you're going to have to. It's going to be tight, but I think you can do it.
I think the cap going up has very little to do with it because everybody gets that boost and the market goes up. A player, all the agents say, well, now I deserve more. I'm going to get more because there's more money to spread around.
I get it. I'm just saying it's just how it works. Cap space out of thin air, Doug.
Well,
we've seen it a million times.
If that were the case, then Devontae Adams never would have left Green Bay or Tyreek Hill never would have left. I mean, eventually it cost.
Eventually it cost them, and they waited too long to do the right thing.
All right.
They also had a whack job as a quarterback.
Next up, hold on, I just lost the free agent salary tracker. Current market values. There we go. Next up, Danielle Hunter, if not with the Minnesota Vikings. Jacksonville is the 5-4 favorite. The Bears are 5-2. Detroit is the third favorite at 4-1.
What does Spot Track have his contract at?
One moment, please, because I do have to scroll. I would suspect it's going to be north of $20 million. They do not have him on this list for some reason. Sometimes edge rushers are listed outside linebacker, and that's where he is. Okay, good. Danielle Hunter. 3 years, 60.114. So roughly $20 million a year.
That's, I mean, you can certainly more get on board with that than you could a $28 million player.
Yeah. I mean, he's 29. And I mean, I don't think that there's a tank that's running out of gas, but.
No. And with 3-year deals can often be just 2-year deals, right? Based on how they're structured. We know the contracts are made to be broken.
Yep.
So,
okay,
that's something else to consider when thinking about these.
These are now players that aren't free agents, but again, the Lions are considered a possible landing spot. Hassan Reddick, if not with the Eagles. Atlanta is 4-1. Detroit is the second favorite at 6-1. Now, his contract, his base salary this coming season is $14.25 million. All the bonus stuff, or much of the bonus stuff, would be accelerated and hit Philly. They would hit Philly if they traded him. I mean, this is interesting. You have to give something up to get him. And this would be a team that right now thinks of themselves as a NFC contender.
Right. And he's 29 years old, and the last 4 years, he's had 12.5, 11, 16, and this past year, 11 quarterback sacks.
So this is where you get into fit a little bit. And, they talk at great length about fit. I know that they did not think that Chase Young fit their defensive philosophy. I was told that he didn't fit their defensive philosophy. Philly runs a lot of 3-4 stuff. I don't know if that's necessarily going to keep them from making a move, but I think they're pretty varied there. I don't think they're hardcore 3-4. So that could work out. I'm less likely to make a move like this because I don't know that I really want to trade when there are free agents out there. But Hassan Reddick, the Lions are the second favorite at 2-1. And finally, from betonline.ag, this is the player they're favored to get.
This is the one that's interesting.
Lions are the 2-1 favorite to land Khalil Mack if he's not with the Chargers. Khalil Mack has one more year on the contract. His base salary, $17.55. So a lot of the bonus stuff would hit the Chargers.
So, looking at Khalil Mack, he's 33 years old. Listed as a linebacker, but he's 270 pounds. He had 17 sacks last year. That's a career high. He had 74 tackles last year. His highest total since 2017 when he had 78 with Oakland. He had tackles in the 70s all 4 years he was with the Raiders. He forced 5 fumbles last year, which is tied for his second most in the season with forcing 6. And by the way, he's forced 30 fumbles in his career. This guy is a flat-out play maker. I remember when he was coming out of college and watching his games. He played with Buffalo, and I think there was a game against Ohio State that I saw him play. And I was like, wow, this guy's all over the field. Who is this guy? Well, it's Khalil Mack. From having no knowledge of him personally other than watching him as a player, he strikes me as fitting that bill of being a football player.
So he is, last year, the Chargers were a 3-4 team, and he was an outside linebacker. Does he fit Detroit's defensive scheme? I don't know what Jesse Minter is going to run with the Chargers. They did a lot of 4-2-5 at Michigan. What do they want to do at the NFL level? I suspect, if I had to guess, I would guess it would be more along the lines of what the Ravens have done, given that that's where their background is in the NFL, and a lot of what you do. I would think that they would follow the Ravens template more than the Michigan template, and the Ravens are also a 3-4 team. So, he might fit perfectly with them, and I don't know if he would fit what Detroit wants. I know the whole that seems to matter to them. It does seem to matter to them how you fit into their system.
Well, Vegas doesn't take things lightly when they make predictions like this and set the board, right? Because people are wagering on it, and they're in the business of making money.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it matters what defense you play. You adapt whatever if you land somebody like Khalil Mack. Because all he does is menace other teams in the backfield.
I'm not sure that's the way they think. And by they, I mean the Lions.
It may not be, but I'm just saying, why is Vegas have him as the number one odds?
I don't know. That's a great question, and I'm not sure.
I don't know what the Bears ran when he played with the Bears or what Oakland ran when he played with the Raiders. You have to go back and look at that. I mean, his size would tell you he's not an outside linebacker. He's somebody who's going to play at the edge of the line of scrimmage and come after you. And if you watch him, that's what he does.
It's guys can be repurposed for sure. I just don't know if they want to do that and if he's a player that they see doing that at this point in his career. But all very interesting. Any of those moves jump off the page where you're like, yep, that's the one. That's the one.
Well, you have to ask yourself, because Khalil Mack, you'd have to give up something. It's not free agents.
Sam Reddick, you'd have to give up something.
Right.
The rest are free agents. Chris Jones, you'd have to give up $30 million.